Hi, welcome back to Future Fast. And once again, we have Gulrez with us. And for those of you who have missed the first two parts of the conversation, you have seriously missed something. I sincerely urge you, please go look up the first part of the conversation where he shares his journey. It's amazing is an understatement. So you will know why I'm saying that. So please go get that. And second part of the conversation is what he is doing now and how is he looking at impacting so many girl children education in rural Bihar and whether and if and how it can be scaled. Some conversations we've had on that, and you will get his perspective and approach to it. So you must go and get those two things. And welcome to this part where we are going to talk about future and get his perspective on the future. And if you have not yet subscribed to Future Fast, do it right now. Gulrez, once again, thank you so much for making time to do this. So I'm very excited because I thoroughly enjoyed both our previous conversations, and once again, thank you for making time.
Thank you, Nanju. It was a pleasure doing the last two episodes, and I look forward to our conversation today. It's not only it's educational, but extremely enriching for me as well.
Oh, thank you. Those are my words. so, so, Gulrez, I know this is a very ordinary question, but I feel most people don't actually think so much. What does future mean to you?
Uh, it's not an easy question. I mean, obviously, we would visualize about aspects of the future where we are sighted today. I mean, if you talk to a normal person, they'll talk about technology and AI, artificial intelligence type of things comes up. There's no denying that technology is what will take us into the future. But when I think of the future, I think last time we talked about different Indias, though it's a cliche, it's a lived experience for me. And perhaps my future, when I look at some of the aspects of the other India, and I try and visualize where this section of society might be, this part of the country where it might be, how will it be governed, how will they meet their aspirations, uh, where will their children or grandchildren um, find themselves at the end of another two generations. So it's a mixture of a lot. I mean, obviously, AI and technology is relevant for all of us, though I'm not an expert in that area. I mean, what got my attention when people talk about AI is that some people say that uh, since fire was discovered and since electricity was discovered, I mean, AI will bring change to the world on the same magnitude. You're a technology person. I can't say that. But obviously, from all I read and hear, it's going to make the world very different to what it is today. So let's leave the technology part of it. And I think you should talk to people more knowledgeable about that sector. I'm not a technology person, though I use technology as far as possible. Uh, as I said, I like to think about governance and about future of uh, generations to come. Uh, in parts of India, which perhaps have not had the benefits of growth or development so far. I think in our first session, we talked a little bit about the IAS and what it means in 2024. When I think of the future, I think of the governance that our panchayati system, which is governance at the field level, would be in full flow. Uh, it is constrained today, but already it has wrought tremendous change at rural India level or rural Bihar level. I can't speak for the rest of the country. I don't know so well, but I know my part of the world. And the whole process of electing a new head of the village, we call them Mukhya in Bihar, Some states they call them sarpanch, etc., etc. And this is at the level, not only at the panchayat level, but at the block level and at the district level. I would visualize a future where these people are in control of governance. Now, lot of
That is to say, it will be more decentralized. Is that okay to
it
put
would
that?
absolutely, it will be much more decentralized than it is today. And maybe it will meet your regional aspirations as well, Nanju. And I visualize that just as in the rural areas, you will have your panchayats and zilla parishads, which would be driving governance. In the cities, we will have very powerful cities. I mean, just as you have in the many parts of the world. I mean, Recep Erdogan was the mayor of Istanbul. I mean, you have seen some mayors of New York and Chicago, and you know where they have gone. I mean, running cities is not a child's game. So I visualize a governance which is, as you put it very rightly, which will be much more decentralized and therefore much more responsive to the aspirations of the people. And the question really in my mind is how quickly we get there.
And also more accountable.
Absolutely. So it's if it's mindful of the aspirations of the people, making them accountable is easier because of the proximity and the access. Everybody in the village can go to the Mukhia's house, and if he doesn't listen to him, shout something at his house and come away. And it happens even today. I mean, if somebody is
Okay.
left out from some welfare scheme, that is where they go and shout. And so, yes, they'll be responsive and I think they'll be accountable. Now, many naysayers will say, but this will lead to capture by the elites and it will lead to corruption. I think the capture by the elites will be eroded by this process, especially after large chunks of people who were not in the power structure earlier. They have come up through reservations, through affirmative actions. And this is reflected, it's very manifest in the people who are getting elected in places like Bihar and UP. And you find people and women. I mean, in Bihar, 50% of the seats are reserved for women. I think it's a revolutionary change. And so I'm very optimistic as far as Bihar or even as far as Bihar goes, because I think on the governance, some of these steps will start fructifying.
Hmm. Well, but is it fair to say the same will also be the case in urban area? Because if you recall, I was telling you the unfortunate state of Bangalore, 50% vote here for the local election, and good majority of them don't know who's their corporator or municipality representative is for them, and literally they don't care. Only a local business, when they want to set up a shop, is all they care who's the local corporator, because you need some signatures
Uh,
or some approvals and all that. So, so there are populations who live for sometimes even generations without even worrying about who, and they expect the local amenities to be addressed by an MLA or an MP, but don't know or realize there is a municipality and there is somebody who has to do it. So, do you think, I mean, as much as I want it that way, do you think it'll happen that way?
so then we need to ask ourselves that if it is not so today, what will bring about that change? Uh,
Exactly.
I think the answer is twofold. Some changes are brought from above through legislations or regulations. Even the powers today the panchayats have or the municipalities have are due to, I think it's what, 73rd and 74th Amendment in the Constitution, which gave a lot more powers to these bodies. And it has taken 20 years since then to where we are today.
No,
You're
but
about to say,
even now, there are amendments made which is still not in place, and people are not familiar.
then Nanju, we have to come to part two of how we will bring about
Okay.
change. is the logic of the
Oh,
way
sorry.
humanity.
Can you just repeat it? There was a pause with the
No, I was saying that
part two.
part part two is that uh, if it is not through legislation and regulation, then it's public influencers, public opinion makers, writers who will create the situation where willy-nilly this will happen. I mean, visualize yourself as leading a movement in Bangalore for greater municipal autonomy in Bangalore. Why not? I mean, most of Bangalore is educated, they're connected, they're wired. You have social media as a powerful instrument. Let's think of a way to get out this idea that look, the key to our welfare is some form of effective city governance, and these are the things which are required. And I think movements will start and it will happen. I think there is just too much at stake for people to sit back and not participate.
True.
And I think people will come forward and do this. I mean, the fact that you so emotionally talk about regionalism in the context of city government shows that there are a lot of people out there in Karnataka or in Bangalore who feel and think like you, right?
Well, yeah. I guess you are in a perhaps subtly saying that don't complain. See what you can do about it.
No, no, no. No, no. I'm not going down that route. I'm saying that is how change takes place. It's
True.
an evolutionary process. I mean, we can't go around marching in the street with guns. I mean, that's out of
Mm,
the question. So
right.
we have to build public opinion, and we have to make the people who are taking these decisions hurt so much politically that
Correct.
unless they take these right decisions, they get penalized politically, in which
Correct.
case they will change course. Or if they think that the benefit is better to be at the city government level, lot of talent will want to shift to city government level. I mean, when I first went to the USA, Nanju, I was surprised. I asked them, I mean, look, we have our districts and DMs. What do you guys do? So they said we have county managers and they have city managers. Now, these are professional cadres. And the county manager gets paid in some rich counties like Northern Virginia next to a city, or places in New Jersey and Connecticut, higher than some of the investment bankers who are working in these cities.
Oh,
So
wow.
there is a price for talent, and
Correct.
talent has come to these cities. There is a bond market which finances these people. No, I mean, so it has to come. If we, sorry,
But
go ahead.
if you see that we have the a political dispensation and administrative dispensation, right? Somehow seem to be very collectively united on some of these things where they don't there is nobody wanting to enforce what is existing, the rules, laws, everything is in place, but they just don't want to do anything, and they're also united in this.
Uh, if the voters in Bangalore say that tomorrow we will for a party which has this blueprint, which takes Bangalore, Greater Bangalore, it will be because a lot of the suburbs will get added towards the direction of autonomous governance. And if you don't support it, you don't have my vote. Now, this might appear theoretical, but this is the basis of democracy. And it's for the public opinion makers and the influencers to make this a fact.
uh, very true. In fact, I kind of working on a campaign like that, and one of the things I'm associated with. But yes, I hope what you say will be the future, because I really want that to be the future. But what do you think will not change
In governance or in
in governance? While you said that village level and city level, it will go more decentralized and all that. As a as your as you see the future will be, what do you think will not change?
it's I mean, if these changes take place in governance, and when I mentioned that governance deficit was one of the reasons for, let's say, where Bihar is, then obviously I would be visualizing a situation where there'd be a positive impact. So it's not that overnight people will become rich, but I would definitely then visualize a society where enough premium is paid in public education, enough premium is paid on public health, enough premium politically is placed on civic policing, not colonial policing, civic policing, where police treats you and me as citizens and not as subjects. And property rights, land records, householdings. I think the governance deficit will be removed only if we decentralize and towards the vision which I have tried to describe as where I see the future going.
Right. Uh, and assuming it happens, what part of this either will not change or you don't want it to change?
That's, I mean, see, in any change, there will be winners and losers.
Mm,
And it's not as if everybody will be a winner. So those people
correct.
who are the sort of elites of today, they'll be losers. And as we discussed, these elites come from many sections of society. So there will be a reassertion by the old elites to push back in many of these changes. And there will be a conflict. Now, a lot of people talk about a constructive conflict. It need not be physical conflict, but there'll be a clash of interests. Now, what shape that clash take, it's difficult for me to uh, articulate, but I think and I hope it will be done in an extremely democratic fashion through literacy and through debate. But there will be losers.
But it will not be violent, you say.
I don't think so. I mean, look, um, I mean, where has violence? Uh, I mean, we have gone through a lot even since 1947. Even before 47, there were streams of the independence movement which believed that the way to go after is through revolutionary action, through physical activity. You had the great movement in Bengal of the revolutionaries. You had the Bhagat Singhs, and then you had Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. I don't take the view that all these efforts were in vain. I think they added to the whole menu of resistance which was offered to the British,
Right.
and all added their weight in sort of the final push for Britain to leave in 1947. Then you come post 47. I mean, a lot of the changes, we had the communist movement in Telangana, and then Andhra Pradesh. Uh, we had the communists coming to power in Kerala. Uh, you had the Naxalite movement in Bengal. These were all, I mean, many respects violent. But the message they gave was taken over, and these people were inducted into the governance system. Communists became duly elected, though Nehru dismissed the government, and that's its own history. In Andhra and Kerala led to a lot of land reforms, which had tremendous benefit for the people. It also impacted the social structure. Hitherto backward castes and Dalits, they came in Malayali society. So also in Telangana, there was a lot of land reform. Even in Bengal, I mean, while the Naxalites were an extremist, the left took over the whole land reform movement in Bengal, you could say would come. So what I visualize is that there may be pockets of violent resistance, but by and large, it's the message of this resistance which will get internalized in our governance system and lead to positive change rather than a victory for these violent resistance. There's a distinction I'm trying to draw between the two.
Do you see the way the IAS, Indian Administrative Service, is structured today, and that will change in future?
It has to. I mean, if we are talking about decentralized governance,
Yeah,
uh,
then it has
I mean,
to.
then it has to. And more than the, I mean, not only the IAS, all India services.
Right.
I think there's a lot of talent at the state level. I mean, the debates which we have read, why the All India services were retained in 47 is because at that time, the country had still not come together. There was princely states, there was
Hmm.
partition, there was a lot of disturbance in the country, and there was a genuine anxiety amongst Sardar Patel and Nehru and other people that we need some sort of a legacy administration, which is all India in nature to keep the country together. But today it's 75 years hence. I mean, we talked about the migrant capitalists, the Marwadi. They have knit the country together. Cricket has knit the country together. Social media has knit the country together.
True.
I mean, today India is a, sorry.
No, no, very true. Very true. I'm just agreeing with you.
So, do we still have that? Do we still see those same dangers? I don't think so. And I think uh, we are much more advanced toward, as an Indian nation, 75 years hence, to need institutions like the ones which we needed in 1947. And I think we
So,
should talk about it.
what do you think will trigger this change or change in this towards this? Because you gave a 2 point suggestion on that. So, do you have 2 points for this as well?
Well, I mean, one is, of course, there will be a movement from the states if they go down this route of wanting people who are more embedded in their society, in their governance, to sort of be the administrators in that state. The other is, there already you'll find in some states when their relationship with the central government becomes tense, they don't, I mean, get all the cadre officers back into the states. The way these things work is there is an authorized cadre number of people. Karnataka would have 300, 400, 500 IS officers. At any point of time, half of them will be in government of India, the other half will be here. And suddenly you'll start finding that uh, possibly the officers they don't want, who are from other parts, you stay put in Delhi, I have my own guys who will run the state for me. Uh, a second stage for that is the state civil service people. Now, I find a lot of talent even in the state civil service people. The advantage they have is they have language skills, they have culture skills. Uh, People say because they are locals, they get sort of politically aligned. My thesis is that you don't have to be a local to be politically aligned. You have boys from and girls from other states who are as
Correct.
politically aligned with the leadership in many of the states.
Very true. Yeah.
And more than the civil services, I think the police has to be much more local, because it impacts society directly. So we and I mean, a lot of people talk about an all India service for the judiciary. I would argue against that at the junior judiciary, which is not the High Court and not the Supreme Court, but the district level judiciary. Most evidence is taken in the local languages.
Correct.
Can you, I mean, you send somebody from Bihar to wherever, to Karnataka, let's say, and he has to take evidence from a poor Kannadiga from wherever. By the time I master that language, I mean, all of us develop certain language skills when you go to the state, but not to the extent where I can interrogate people,
Correct.
or, really delve into what the issues are. Maybe I'm coming across as a skeptic, not a nationalist enough, Sanju. But I think on these aspects of
No,
regionalism, I
honestly,
agree.
no, on Gulrez, I think probably you know already that this is. I am completely in agreement with everything you say. These are all music to my ears. But in your among your peers, the IAS peers, and the community, your juniors or the ex-colleagues and all that. Where does this argument sit? How do they see this from your experience?
See, those of us who are retired or who are not in the service are open to the charge that these guys had it good when they were in service. And now that they are not there, they are sort of speaking about this decentralization. And one hears that charge. I mean, so the charge will, so what did you do about it when you were in this service? Now, that's a very easy ball to lob. I don't think this question is of such importance that it cannot be left to the members of the IAS to decide. I mean, this is for
No, but
society to decide.
correct. But where does it start? What is the starting point to this?
Again, there will be increasingly, let's say governance gets decentralized. Let's say the mukhia of my village.
No,
But
even for the going decentralized, going towards the direction, administration itself can be one big roadblock, right? It can itself can be a big force of resistance to this
no, absolutely. But I'm saying that
because it's
the
going to take away their power, influence to a great extent.
yeah, but you as a society, Nanju, and the people whom you elect want society to go in a certain direction. Who are officers in the civil services to resist that? They can't. Now, I am not thinking of, while being open to the charge of being an ex-IAS officer making these points. I do not think that we exist or any of these services exist. And why just the IAS? I mean, I can name 15 other services in different parts, uh,
Including judiciary.
including judiciary. We are there for the benefit of the people. And those who represent the people, they should decide. And you and I can create the public opinion, can create the atmosphere for these decisions to be taken properly. Uh, it's not going to be easy. All of these people will be losers, but um I'm at some point, statesmanship in the political leadership has to overtake the next election, and people must think and talk about these issues.
Uh, you have been an insider from that respect, and of course, like you said, the charges will be that okay. Now that you have retired, you are speaking up. While you were in, what did you do? That is one standard thing, I guess, right? But now that you've retired, the same thing. Would you and your peers who are actually are in this position to look back and say, okay, you know what, this needs correction. But do you think you and your that community will be? I mean, would you throw your hat, your own self? Would you throw your hat into the ring and say, okay, I will come forward to work towards it because now you are a citizen like any of us. So would you see yourself or your peers coming forward to say that okay, we need to do something towards fixing the system. This needs the correction, and we need to work towards it. And
No,
who better than you and your kind of people to lead it because you know far better. Because for the rest of us, it's only an outside view and small touch points.
no, Joe. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said, but on one point, I will disagree. Why should I assume that this movement for change should be taken up by IAS or ex-IAS? In my view, they are irrelevant to this exercise. They are only relevant to the extent that if the political master tells them, find me a reason why this should not happen, they will produce that reason. I mean, that's a very cynical answer I am giving you. But other than that, if the elected government says that, look, this model is not working, I have to decentralize, this will give me far better responsiveness to the people, then the political executive has to take the decision. Just because somebody has been in the IS does not give him the world's wisdom. I think somebody who's elected by the people who are, and should people with our background try and get into the political executive and get into governance? I would encourage everybody to get involved politically because whatever is the mess people talk about, all the decisions come from that pool. And therefore, I mean, everybody should, I would consistently argue that one should try and enter and get into politics if we want change. Now, given where politics is today, it's not easy because it requires relationships, it requires financing, it requires other alignments. But that, to my mind, is the only way if you want to affect change in society.
Would you?
Well, I mean, I did. We
Oh, you
haven't
did?
talked about. I
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
talk.
we have not.
We didn't talk about it, but because I realized after living in 7, 8 years that this is the only way to change. And people were coming to me and they talk about a third front in Bihar, and there's a Dalit leader there who was also minister earlier, and he used to come by my house very often. And we would talk about these things, and he would say, but look, I mean, you can't just sit in your chair and talk. You better get out and do something. What? Now, the existing parties have no place for you. You can't give them money. So what do you do? And long story short, Manju, we started a political party in Bihar.
Wow.
And
Okay. What's it called?
it was called Jan Sangharsh Dal,
Okay.
People's Struggle Party.
Okay.
And it was registered. We got a registration. I was the president of the party. This Dalit leader, he was the national general secretary. And we had support, and we said it was the voice of Champaran. So basically, our focus area were the two Champarans and some neighboring districts. We fought the 2020 state elections and we put up about 20, 25 candidates.
Wow.
Everybody lost badly, as they would, because to build a party, you need time, you need effort, you need lots of other things. But I went down that route. Now, if I was 20 years younger, Nanju, I wouldn't have abandoned myself because there's a very famous, I wouldn't have abandoned this line. There's a famous saying by Kanshi goes to say that the first election is to lose, the second election is for your opponent to make your opponent lose, and the third election is for victory. So by this thesis, unless you have fought three elections, you really don't know how far you have advanced.
All
But
right.
I could carry on with it, and uh, since 21, 22, the party has become defunct. People have joined other forces. This leader who was with me has joined up with. Have you heard of Prashant Kishore?
Yes, yes. I think he has a political party now.
Yeah, so Jan Suraj, he hasn't formed a party yet, but he's
Oh, it's not a
walking,
party yet?
not yet, it's still a platform, and
Ah,
he's walking through Bihar. So this gentleman has joined Prashant Kishore's Jan Suraj movement. And I have told people, look, I don't have the stamina or the time or the money to invest in this party. Let me go back to running my schools, which were neglected, and see what I did. But I did that but I learned a lot, Nanju. I learned this whole game of politics, how people thrive in it, all the sort of dark underbelly of politics. Uh, but it's a tough job. And Even though I couldn't do it, I would encourage every young person to see if they can get involved in it. Otherwise, you cannot change society without getting involved.
Oh well, I, I only wish this had come up. I just didn't know at all. So okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing this, and I really appreciate it that you actually made an attempt. What you advise, you actually ate your own
And,
food
and,
before
and you know
serving
what?
it out.
And you know what our main manifesto was?
Uh,
That if you want Bihar to be Viksit, I mean developed, we need to fix four things: public education, public health, law and order policing, and land records, which is property rights. I said, let's just focus on these four things. But we didn't get the traction because you need time to talk. And Prashant Kishore talks very much about these same things when he's walking around.
Correct. I actually saw quite a few of his videos,
Mhm.
and looks like he's clearly talking about a long term. I think another thing what I liked about it is I think he's trying to educate people to think in this direction because most times people are only worried about today, tomorrow, yesterday.
That's true.
So I think uh, uh, he may have a chance in the long term because I think he is at least educating a lot of people to think in this direction. Uh,
Yeah, he's
uh,
working very hard. I mean, anybody who takes the time and the effort, makes the time and effort to walk through for months on end through the state is committed. And I think people have respect for that effort. Where he comes out, one doesn't know, but uh, I don't think uh, I don't think it'll end in nothing. I think there will be some developments coming out of it. And I think it's after this parliamentary elections. I think next year is our assembly elections, 2025.
yeah, looks like
And
he's looking at targeting that.
that's
No,
correct.
but what I found him to be, maybe I don't know, it is being an Indian, the way I think. If somebody speaks too much about themselves, he says, "I could make a prime minister. So what do you think I can make for myself?" So, somehow it is very difficult for our upbringing to admire someone who speaks so much about himself.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, he's making an effort. Let's see where he comes out. I mean, he's a public figure. I mean, we all know what he has achieved, but politics is a funny game, and we'll see.
yeah, on those lines, one thing is that if we do go decentralized route, that would mean a lot of regional parties at every stage because it cannot be just individuals, right? It is bound to be still a party system, but a lot of regional parties. So, how do you see those regional parties uh, across different every state and Indian government? Where it's bound to be a coalition, though technically current government is called NDA government, but there is a very clear one party which has got significant majority to be independently, you know, governing India, if you will. But why is it that okay? That's a different question. That why do we still? I'll come to that part. But how do you see this happen?
So I do not think that decentralized governance would necessarily lead to mushrooming of regional parties. You can have national parties with local leadership. This famous saying about the Congress that it is a big tent. And even during its heydays, I think there would be very little in common between the Congress party in Kerala and the Congress party in Bihar, for instance, or in Uttar Pradesh. So you can have big tent parties as well. I mean, so broadly you are aligned on certain major issues, but there's local leadership, there's local governance, and there is a governance mechanism within the party, or there's an overarching thing. So first point, need not necessarily lead to uh, what is the word for it? Uh, multiplicity of regional efforts. Secondly, even if they are regional parties, so what? There is a constitution we are being ruled by, that the court should have the guardrails from ensuring that they are within that constitutional boundaries. And let them within that constitutional boundary prove to the people that we can deliver on the aspirations better than a national party. And they get elected. And then let them support whoever they like in government of India. I mean, I do not subscribe to the view that you have to have uniformity in politics or single party to have good governance at the center. I mean, maybe you will have one single party ruling at the center, but then there will be intra-party conflicts. All parties have intra-party conflicts. Unless you get into a current situation or a situation during Indira Gandhi's time that one person mattered and that the destiny
Right.
of that party was linked to that one person. At
Right.
which point of time, it's a different game. But barring these two personalities, you can have prime ministers and chief ministers who think differently. And I see no contradiction between regional power parties and a healthy democracy, whether at the central level or at the state level. Maybe some of the powers of the state government would be better respected in such a scenario.
Right. The thing I wanted to ask you also use this term that we will have. Why are we, by and large, in India stuck up with our political representatives to be leaders? Why is this looking for a Raja in a political representative? Why is that hangover still so predominant? So much so that even the bureaucracy, police, everybody seems to be readily aligning to whoever forms the government because they become that Raja. Why is this here?
Well, I mean, firstly, the Rajas is all societies. I mean, they go by different names. Perhaps not to the same degree where we have.
No, is that where the accountability is getting lost because leader becomes you can't question, so they are leaders. Whereas if it is a representative, then it is your right to question and it is their right to explain.
So, I mean, we talked a little bit about democracy and functioning democracy, I think, in the first session.
Yeah,
Uh, as you move towards a functioning democracy, I mean, this sort of accountability and the ability to ask questions, even from the so-called Raja, would be an inalienable part of a functioning democracy. And that's what I mean by inner party democracy.
No,
We
but
don't.
why are we culturally seeking a leader in a representative? Why can't a representative just be a representative? Why are we culturally looking for leaders in everybody? I just controlling myself using any other word.
Uh, I mean, uh, I don't think there's one single answer. I think it's our history. I think it's cultural. I think it's our familiar ties. I think it's your patriarchy, perhaps, in our thinking, and a mixture of all those things. I mean, we deify leaders. I mean, even governments we call my bap, mother, father, leader. Is it lack of education? Is it the vestiges of a feudal structure?
Right.
It could be all of the above. My friends from Kerala tell me that they have less of this my bap syndrome in Kerala than they have in North India. I don't know, maybe why is it those societies have moved beyond the my bap syndrome? Is it education? Is it economic independence? Um, could be all of above. I don't have one answer to that question,
No,
though
but
it's
we
a
do
fact.
have it in South. People fall at the feet of their political leaders, young or old, because they are leaders. And the whole thing is that leader thing. Uh, I mean, I find my hair standing up with aversion with this whole thing. And do you think that will change in future?
No, I mean, look at it this way. I mean, they fall in the feet of Jayalalitha maybe, or at MGR. They don't fall at the feet of all Tamil leaders.
Who whoever is in the chair today. I mean, it looks. I mean, of course, those days it was like that, but today you find everybody they fall at the feet of everybody who is somebody, which is so ridiculous.
Yeah, perhaps, I mean, deference, it's no longer deference, but obeisance, which takes over.
It is of sorts, but
And
do you think
I,
that will change? Will it change?
if we get to the decentralized society and governance I am visualizing, then that has to change. Because then what will happen that the first guy who was working in my field will become the mukhia tomorrow.
Right.
And, then there'll be nobody to sort of fall at your feet.
Correct.
Because the guys, they'll all be in a position to think that they can become the leader. So I don't have an answer for you, Nanju, but I think education will help. I think decentralization, empowerment of marginal society people, that would help. I think inner party democracy would help, so that leaders within a party are thought of as a person who has a wider base of support rather than some God-gifted right to rule. Um, so all of that above, and all of those elements again are attributes which a mature democracy gives you. So whenever you ask the question, are we a democracy or are we a flawed democracy? Think of all these missing gaps and say if these were there, we would be a mature democracy.
True. Well, I think I'll hold other things for perhaps a separate part of a conversation if we can do that along with you and few other people. Uh, would you want to make some predictions?
Some predictions. I think with all its challenges and troubles, India will be a mighty economy within 25 to 30 years. I only wish that that strength comes not on the back of just 15 or 20% of its people, but that it comes on the back of 75 or 80% of its people, i.e., that we have a much more widespread development and economic growth within the country. And I say this with some sense of confidence, not because we are magicians, but we I think in India, there's a tremendous energy of entrepreneurial talent. And it's not just the startup technology guy in Bangalore. I mean, even a person in the village, he's an entrepreneur. They'll sell their vegetable, they'll plant their buffalo, they will sell some water for irrigation. Given the right sort of context, uh, Indians are an extremely entrepreneurial class. The only other people I find equally entrepreneurial are the Chinese. Um, um, I've been to China a number of times, but more importantly, if you see the Chinese who are in East Asia, Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, uh, extremely entrepreneurial, Malaysia. So that is one Bhavishyavani, one my forecast that we'll be economically very successful. The only sort of risk to that is we have to learn to live as one society. We have to carry everybody with us. We cannot have a us and them. As I said, I keep reminding myself about Sri Lanka's experience. The moment these things start coming up, there is no way of stopping them. And before you know, from becoming a next Asian tiger, that is what Sri Lanka was talked about in the 70s, it suddenly goes down the path of something else. So that's one forecast. I see Bihar developing in spite of all our ills, because with decentralized governance, hundreds and thousands of entrepreneurs will rise and they will bring new models. Because land is an issue, factories will not mean 5 acres of land. It might mean half acre of land, but a vertical factory. So I see that happening in the next 25 to 30 years. Maybe you should call them wish lists rather than forecasts. But but it is bound to happen. I mean, uh, we have to figure out how to get there. What else can I see? I think technology has already changed the world. I see the very strict regulation of social media, Nanju. I think over time, societies and countries will understand far better what damage some of the social media has done to the fabric of our societies, and they would be regulated. I'm not saying that they'll be banned, but they will be strictly regulated. What type of messaging, what responsibility for messaging, the content. Some risk will come on the carriers. Um, I
That
think that
that
will happen.
that doesn't sound very democratic, right?
It is and it is not, because even in a very decentralized governance, you can't let cholera spread. Now, I talked about ethnic
No,
strife in
but
a country.
Chris, this is exactly the conversation 400 years ago when printing press came.
No, no, there's a large difference. No, there are now today cases where social media has been documented to create strife in societies. I'm not saying they should be banned. There has to be some accountability. I cannot say that I'm just the messenger and the message belongs to somebody else. Look at the study on Facebook in Myanmar. Look at the study on Facebook in Sri Lanka. There are other cases which will come up. Uh, is there even in the best of democracies, there has to be certain guidelines for free speech. Now, the risk is that we don't get that balance right and we move in a certain direction.
No, but
If
Facebook had a significant role even in Arab Spring. But uh, your observation was that it was largely locally driven. Facebook was just a platform they used.
it, I'm not saying it hasn't had good fallouts. I'm just arguing for a case where
So
it can.
some good happens, some bad can also. I mean, it's a
No,
package we right we
no.
always have. Right?
Well, let's see. That is my prediction. Let's see where it goes. Uh, I read a lot. I mean, who was the Prime Minister in New Zealand? That lady, Jacinda.
Yeah,
She used to talk a lot about this, and
correct.
I found some merit in her speeches that some of the egregious ills of social media uh, definitely should be monitored, and some way should be found without sort of limiting creativity and all the good things which comes from social media, and me talking to Nanju sitting thousands of kilometers away, some of the most egregious ills can be better controlled. That's all my forecast, not for banning it outright.
Right. Well, only thing is every time anything is controlled, uh, there seems to be a problem because who controls it will invariably have a bigger influence. So that is what the whole problem has been, right? Whoever
Ah,
controls it. So
I think you have a point, Manju. I can't get away from the democratizing force of social media. I'm not denying that. But should one investor sitting in Silicon Valley mm, be able to manipulate things, and his chief operating officer, who's also an ex-World Banker. I mean, there has to be certain limits to what use or abuse data can be put to. Now, maybe I'm misinformed, and there is no abuse of data, and there is no
no,
abuse of
no,
this medium.
definitely they are happening, and that's why. But at the same time, there are very strong alternatives, right? If only let's say every country builds an infrastructure like that, uh, which makes it easy and possible for us. for one cloud infrastructure in India.
Hmm.
If such a thing is made possible,
Hmm.
then our very dependencies on Playbook and Play Stores itself will cut off. And if that get cut off, the data of our citizens' behavior will not go out. It will still remain, but it will remain here with the businesses here, and you can still make it interoperable. So there are so many technological solutions rather than bringing uh, an enforcement on what can be allowed, what should be allowed, like government banning TikTok or a whole lot of things. That okay, you restrict, but you create infrastructure here or facilitate creation of such infrastructure so that it becomes like how China built their infrastructure. What TikTok world gets and what TikTok China gets are entirely different, right?
No,
That has
so if
been the contention as well, right?
so if there are technical solutions, I mean that's the route to go. But I would hate to see a day where all the forecasts about economic well-being of our country gets stymied by spread of strife within the country, and where the main medium of this spread of misinformation or fake news, which creates hatred, is a certain type of social media. Now, how we control for that, that's where I'm coming to regulation. Maybe regulation, the answer is not laws, but technology. And if we can find that solution, so be it. I mean, again, I reiterate, I see the democratic value of social media,
No,
but it
probably
has
a lot of these things will have to come about in our education system also, right? In terms of how do we look at what is uh, doctored information or manipulated information? How do you look at the data, and how do you look at statistics and how the statistics are being manipulated to communicate a certain agenda or position certain things? So these things uh, can actually be told with examples. I mean, in fact, our journalism, unfortunately, I find many journalists from national media don't even know how to read a research paper. They go with few lines from abstract and make whatever they want as the research done and attribute that as a published research of a reputed institution and drive a completely different narrative. So, in fact, I wrote one article. I'll share it with you offline on that. But I think maybe we need to, these things demand we create our education system to be, where our students are able to identify or dig into, okay, if this is the research they're referring to, what exactly the research says, or if this is what it is, what is the story of it, is that correct data? So if we keep getting them to see, for me somehow it's become intuitive. Every time I read something, I look at some multiple sources to see, is that what it is? So can we get our students to start looking at it? Then organically it will become more difficult for people who try to fabricate this. Of
yeah.
course, technology, if can be done, that is, there is one effort doing that, but unfortunately, it can always be manipulated because cybersecurity remains the world's biggest, in my opinion, it remains the world's biggest challenge. People will hack into everything. In fact, there are already technologies good enough. The moment we publish this recording, people can make me say something completely different from what I'm saying, and likewise with you. So that's uh,
This scares me, and that's why I use the omnibus word regulated. Maybe we can control for the most serious ill effects of social media, would be the correct way to put it.
yeah, but yeah, that's completely remains the scariest part of the future. Mm. And any closing remark you want to make uh, uh, about future, something that gives more hope and optimism? Which I for me the biggest thing obviously is the decentralized part. But apart from that, anything that you want
No, as I said, I mean, I think decentralization is a really a um, good omen, good direction to go. I think the entrepreneurial spirit of the average Indian that'll be in good stead. And we are also, I don't know, I don't want to make this a virtue. Resilience is both positive and resilience can also sort of make us complacent. I don't want to say that we are a resilient people, but there's a lot of patience. Maybe we should be a little bit more impatient with things, such as those which we have discussed in the area of governance and growth and development. Yes, and I think my last forecast would be that within the next two generations, women will finally uh, be as important a part of our economy as they ought to be given their numbers. I think we'll see drastic improvements on gender, on their employability, on their education, and we should all line up to do whatever we can to achieve that forecast, Danju.
Well, I don't know, you put it as two generations away, but for people in Bangalore, RCB women's team won the women's IPL, and
There
how
you
many
go.
men have not won? So for us, it's now maybe Bangalore is ahead of two generations.
Maybe, yeah. Congratulations, by the way. Some
Oh,
RCB
yeah,
won it.
finally. Uh, Finally,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, the women would like to say the real RCB has won, but I'm really glad that it is.
Yeah.
So,
Good for them. No, I'm so glad that women cricket has taken off. I think it's a great positive. Even girls in our schools want to play cricket. I mean,
wow.
I'll show you some photographs. They take the cricket set out in the lunch break and they're merrily hitting the ball around. Extremely positive sign. So good for the RCB women's team.
Yes. So, so at least in sports, we don't have to wait for two generations.
Okay.
Right. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and sharing uh, all that you did. And I am very sure our audience and listeners have enjoyed it as much as I did. Please do go ahead and share this with all you think who will enjoy this. And please follow the kind of work uh, Gulrez is doing. And particularly, we've already talked about it uh, in our second part of the conversation where uh, we talked about uh, uh, Gulrez, the school that Gulrez is running, and the Hikmat Foundation, that effort that is on, and also about how each of you can support or be part of the journey. In fact, more than the support, it's an opportunity for you to be part of that story, which is going to be one of the primary drivers for the future that Gulrez has just talked about. So please do that, look it up, follow. All the links are given right below this podcast. And thank you once again, and do share your feedback as well. Once again, Gulrez, thank you so much for, for just being you and spending your time here.
Thank you, Danjo. Thank you for giving me this platform, and it was a pleasure to talk to you. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.